All right. Welcome everybody to session number 2 of the SEO Masterclass. We're excited to have everybody on today, and this is going to be a good one. This is one of my favorites, talking about on-page SEO. We're going to be talking about some things that you can do now, some of the things we talked about last week that you can now start to implement on your site, change your site, update your site, some things you can do to really kind of start sending the right signals to Google about your business. So let's dive in, shall we? We're going to be talking about on-page factors, and we call them on-page factors because they're things that you can do on your website. There's also something called off-page factors, which are things you can do on other websites. That is next week's session. So this week, all about Google Love, things that you can do to help Google love your site more. So on-page factors, we're going to go in a little bit deep on the way that your website should be built from an SEO standpoint, what the structure should be, what page titles are, what meta descriptions are, heading tags, how you can find these things, and then, of course, how you can update them as well. We're going to talk a little bit about page copy or content, and that is a huge topic right now. Google just came out with an update within the last week or so related to this that was a follow-up from an update from last April. So that's a big thing. And then I'm going to go on a little bit of a web design tangent. We're going to talk a little bit about the design side of things as well. Definitely an important thing, but not the only thing. I think a lot of people get tied up in making something extremely pretty, but if it doesn't pump out leads for you, doesn't matter how pretty it is. So anyway, I'll leave that for then. We'll leave that for later. You guys know who I am, Will Hankey. My business is called Window Treatment Marketing Pros. My book is called Triple Your Window Treatment and Awning Leads. If you don't have a copy of this, I'll tell you how to get a copy of that at the end as well. We are Google partners. We're family-owned business. We are a veteran-owned business, and excited to have you on today. Now, Q&A. I definitely want to make this interactive. So if you have any questions, if you are live with us today on Zoom, then you can put your questions in the chat and I'll answer them live, which is pretty good. Obviously, if you're watching after the fact, you can't do that. But if you are watching in Zoom, you can do that. You can also unmute yourself and ask the question if you feel frisky, that'd be fine too. If you're watching on one of the streaming networks, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, any of those, you can still put your question into the chat on those platforms as well. And my team will see those and relay those to me as well. So we'll make sure to get your questions answered. So I want to make sure that we get everything answered. As you know, this is all part of what we call our digital dominance method. My business over the years has basically come up with 12 different things that we've identified as being the main pieces to building a very strong digital presence online. Today, we're going to be talking about 2 specific pieces of the recipe, that being number 1, which is your website. So we're going to be talking about the website, which is basically the hub of everything you do. And number 4, which is organic SEO. So we're going to be talking about some things related to that. Now, if you haven't already downloaded the worksheet, make sure you do that. And if you did download the worksheet live last week, you might want to go grab it again, just because it does get updated weekly with some new tasks, some new links, things like that. So go ahead and type that back in to the oops, let me go back. Oh, I thought I could copy it. I was going to try to copy it, but there we go. It's in the chat there. So grab that worksheet and make a copy of that for yourself. That way you can kind of follow along. There's some stuff in there that you need to do, and that will really help you get the most out of this session. So, all right, let's start off here. And I really encourage you to jump into the chat, or else I'm just going to stand here and look like a goofball. But last week we covered understanding your customer. We talked about personas or avatars. We talked about how to build that and what that customer looks like. And ultimately, there's probably going to be 3 or 4 or 5 of those that you have. But we talked about how to build those and that kind of stuff. If you have any questions on that, let's hear what those questions are. Put those in the chat, unmute, ask me the question live. Either way you want to do it. We also covered keyword research, some of the tools that are out there that you can use for doing that. And then some different techniques, some cool websites that we also discovered. So from last week's session, what kind of questions do you guys have that I can make sure everybody's on the same page? Let me see here. Got it. Let me see. Leah says, how concerned should we be about our keywords ranked nationally and how we can focus more locally? Oh, that's awesome. So in our world, we only care about ranking 25 miles away, right? From where we are to maybe 25 miles, a radius of 25, maybe 50 miles or something like that, right? So, so it doesn't do you any good if you're in Texas and you rank for a #1 term in Idaho, right? It does you no good. So there are a lot of cases for our clients where they rank for some fairly good terms, but in the wrong locations, right? And they're just useless. It's useless traffic. It's not going to turn into a lead, anything like that. So you definitely only want to rank locally. When I look at a potential client, the 2 things I look for when it comes to their keywords that they're ranking for, I'm looking specifically for service or product. So in this case, let's say window treatments, and I'm looking for location. So let's say Memphis, window treatments, Memphis. If those 2 things are married together and you're ranking for that, that's a home run. That's a really good ranking, a really good term, and it's going to turn into leads for you. If you just rank for window treatments, which is insane because of the amount of competition, but if you rank for that term, it would only do you good if the person searching for that is within your radius, right? If somebody far, far away was searching for that term, it would do you no good. So we specifically focus on product or service and some sort of a location geo-modifier. When those 2 things are together, that's a win, and that's what we focus on for our clients. So service could be repairs. Some of our clients do repairs. So repair, window treatment repairs, or blind repair Memphis, something like that might be a good one. Or obviously products, Roman shades, Memphis, those types of things work really well. So there are situations where clients will come on board with us and they might lose half of their keywords, but they were useless keywords that weren't generating any traffic or useless traffic in the first place. And they're replaced by traffic that is geo-modified, makes sense for their location, and they're converting visits to their website. So definitely want to try to get more and more of those local terms that you can. Good question. Thank you. All right, I'm going to look here and see if there's any other questions. Oh, okay. I don't see anything else. So let me press on. I guess you guys got everything from last week. That's awesome. Thank you. All right. So let's jump into some on-page factors related to SEO. Now, as I mentioned, your website is your hub. It is the hub of everything you do, whether you're doing paid ads or you're doing social media or you're doing anything, you're always kind of pushing everybody back towards your website, or they are going to go search for your website to learn more about your business. So your website definitely is the hub of everything you do. It's the foundation. You have to build the foundation correct in order to have everything else from there work, right? It's no different than building a house or building any sort of a structure. The foundation has to be correct. Now, when it comes to websites, there are kind of 4 big players. There's WordPress, Weebly, Wix.com, Squarespace. Now there's others. out there. GoDaddy has one. There are other ones that we come across from time to time. These are pretty much the four big players that are out there right now. For our business, we only build websites on WordPress, and we have a multitude of reasons for that. The biggest reason for that, quite honestly, is the fact that you can pick up a WordPress site and move it somewhere else. If you have a bad hosting company or something like that, you can pick up and move it. That's one great reason, right? With Wix or Weebly or some of those kinds of sites, you're stuck on their platform and you can't do that. The other thing is a lot of times they lock down some of the behind the scenes stuff you can't get to, especially at the server level. There's some things you can't get to on some of these other platforms. With WordPress, a lot of that stuff you can get to and you can edit and modify. And we'll get a little nerdy and geeky, but some of that stuff you can edit that will affect what Google thinks about your website, especially when it comes to page speed and some of those types of things. So we're huge WordPress fans. Every website that we build is on the WordPress platform. So with that in mind, what do we do? So WordPress is very SEO friendly, which is another great reason why we love it. There are a couple pieces of a typical SEO structure that you should know. No matter which platform you're using, quite honestly, they're all going to give you the ability to adjust these things that we're going to talk about. So the first one is called page title. Every page on a website has a page title, and that title is the title of that page, what that page is about. So if we look at this example here, Royal Textile Products, their page title is somewhere in this code here, right? So the way that you would do this is you would do a right click on your website and view page source. And depending on which browser you're on, it might be phrased slightly different than that, but that's what you would be looking for, something along the lines of view page source. And you would get some HTML, some code that looks like this. And what you're looking for in this particular case is something along these lines. Title equals blah, right? And this is the title of that page. And it could be that there is no title, right? If this piece of code wasn't put in, that's not very common, but it could be that it doesn't have it. Hopefully it does, right? So first step, find the title. Understand that every page has one of these, and every page should have a different one, right? And we'll get a little bit more into some of this, but just so you know, every page should have one of these. So what is the title tag? So it's an HTML element, as you just kind of learned. It's some code behind the scenes that says this is the title of this particular page, and it obviously gives a little bit of information about that page. Now, one reason this is very important for you is in this example, look here, the title is actually what shows up in Google when somebody's searching. When you're looking through the 10 results in a Google page, in a Google search, that title is that first line that you see. So if you consider, if you typed in window treatments near me and you have 10 results to look at, most likely you're skimming those results and kind of cruising through those titles and making a mental decision by what you read in those titles, right? So that's how important just the title of your page is, right? Very important. The reason every page is different, because every page is about something different, right? You wouldn't want your Roman shades page to say window treatments Memphis. You would want it to say Roman shades Memphis, something like that. That would make more sense. So every page gets a title similar to what that page is about. So if you look for that one that that I mentioned earlier, the Royal Products, their title in this case is Denver Commercial Window Treatments. So that is the #1 keyword that they want to rank for their homepage, right? So Denver commercial window treatments. That's their title. And if you look it up in Google, that's how it comes across, right? So that's exactly what we want to happen in that particular case. Now, in the back end of WordPress, there are two main SEO plugins that you can use. One is called Yoast. The other one is called Rank Math. Now, we used Yoast years ago, but probably 2 or 3 years ago now, Rank Math came on the scene. They do a better job, and we converted all of our sites over to Rank Math. So it doesn't matter. They both do a great job. We just preferred Rank Math. We actually use Rank Math Pro for our clients. But there's a place in there where it actually asks you to put in the title, so that you just plug it right in there, hit save, and boom, that is now the title of the page. Wix, those other platforms probably have something similar, where what is the title of this particular page? You plug that into that spot. All right. As I mentioned earlier, SEO titles influence Google's users. So whatever you put there is very likely to influence if people are going to click on your result or skip on to somebody else's result. So definitely consider that when you're writing your titles. And then obviously also consider keywords along with that. All right, the next piece of this is heading tags. Now, heading tags and titles kind of go hand in hand. They work together with each other. A lot of times they're the same. They don't have to be, but a lot of times when somebody creates a title tag, they'll actually just copy that to the H1 tag. So, that could be the case, doesn't necessarily have to be, but it could be. So a heading tag is typically the title of the page or the number one thing that page is about. It's typically the largest text on the page. And there are other heading tags as well. There's H2, H3, H4, H5, and there is an H6 as well. They do go in order. So H1, the most important, H2, less important, blah, blah, blah. So if you think of a newspaper, I know nobody reads the newspaper anymore, but when you think of a newspaper, the biggest headline is the most important thing on the page, right? The most important news of the day. The second most important news of the day has a smaller headline, and so forth, all the way down. So that's similar to what's happening in the world of HTML. So if we go back and look at this, there's a little bit of a twist here, because the Royal Textile Products here is the biggest font on the page, but that is not the H1 tag. And the reason for that is because that's a graphic. So Google doesn't see the graphic. And we'll talk more about that in a couple minutes here. But if I do a right click and view source to see, what the heading tag is here, I can find it right here in the middle. And I'm looking specifically for H1. I can see that their heading tag is Denver's #1 commercial window treatments. So when we looked at the title, it was Denver commercial window treatments, I think. And this one is Denver's #1 commercial window treatment. So very similar, just slightly different, right? But very close, just a variation. And if we look where that is on the page, you can see it's down the top, down on the left there. That is the first real text on the page. So that is the H1 tag for that particular page. And that's what it looks like in the HTML. Now, one thing, you can only have one H1 per page. I kind of mentioned this earlier. I have seen situations where somebody just looks and says, well, I want all my headings to have that big font. So they'll just use H1 over and over, like this person did. Here's H1, 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 H1. And they did the same thing down the page. And that's going to do nothing but confuse Google. What is the top thing that you're trying to say this page is about? And in this case, it was multiple things, right? And they weren't even keywords in this case. So you have to be careful that H1 tags are, they are keywords related to what you want to rank for. and only one per page, only one H1 tag. Can have multiple words in it, but only one per page. All right, so finding your tags. Now, this is a big job to do when if you have a lot of pages on your site, it can get pretty, it can be pretty big. Let's see, we have a question here. So before I talk about Screamingfrog, let's go to the question here on YouTube. How do I use my keywords in the titles and descriptions without sounding weird or unnatural? How do I use keywords in titles and descriptions without sounding unnatural? Yeah, so title tags used to have a character limit. I think it was around 70 characters is what Google would count. So people would write these long title tags and Google would only count the first 70 characters. Google has since then actually changed it to pixels, and I don't know what the pixels is, but now they're kind of counting X number of pixels. So if you have a lot of W's that are wide, you're going to get less characters than if you have a lot of L's and I's, right? Which is kind of weird, but so they count somewhere in the range of 70 characters. We'll just say that. So you do have to be a little picky about keyword order and preference, which keywords you use. Now, when it comes to sounding unnatural, it's not as important because when somebody's searching through 10 results on Google, you have to remember they're just skimming. And they typed something into Google, probably a couple keywords. And then when they're skimming, they're probably mentally looking for matches along those same keywords, right? So they're not necessarily looking for sentences. They're not necessarily looking for exact matches when they're scrolling. They're just looking for those words matching up somewhere in there. So if you're able to do that, doesn't necessarily have to sound natural. Like if we went back and look at mine, window treatment, awning, marketing, pros, it's not the most natural sounding thing, but it has all my keywords in there in the right place. So I think that's the more important thing, is just to get the main keywords in there for whatever that particular page is about. So a good example of that might be a draperies page. You might want to also use the word curtains in there, right? Because some people do use curtains instead of the word draperies, even though some of our clients hate the word curtains. It is something that people use. So having those keywords in there like that would make sense. So, all right. Let's see, no other questions. All right. So Screamingfrog, check this out. So this is a tool that you can use for free, and I'm going to pull it up and show you guys this tool. So, all right. Can you guys see this on your screen? It says Screamingfrog, and it's got in the bottom right, it says no data for graph. You guys see that on your screen there? All right. Megan Jason says yes. All right. So someone in the chat, give me your website. Somebody that's brave, give me your website URL. So the link to your website. First one that comes up is the one I'll put in. All right. Relish Interiors. Relish Interiors. All right. Relish Interiors.com. I'm going to make sure I spelled it correctly. Relishinteriors.com. So this tool is free. And it's free for up to 500 URLs. So if you have a gigantic e-commerce type site, it's not going to work great. But for most window treatment companies, this is going to be fine. So what you do is you plug in your website here and then hit start. And then it crawls your website. So, it fusses because I'm using the free version. It'll only crawl up to 500 URLs. Okay, that's fine. So if you can see down here in the corner, it's cruising away. It's crawling the site. Hopefully you guys can see this. 67% of the way done. All right, 87, 91. There we go. All right. So just that fast, it crawled every single link on the site, and that was Leah's website. So from here, what I can do now is I can go to, and I apologize, I'm looking over to my left on my other screen here. I can go to export, and then I am going to go to, actually, I'm going to cancel that. Right here, I'm going to drop this down to HTML. So all I want to export is the links on your website, just the HTML links. I don't want to export links to your JPEGs and your pictures and all that JavaScripts and all that stuff. All I care about are the links to pages on your site. So we change that to HTML and then hit export. And this looks like a good name. And that looks like a good place to put it. So I'm going to hit save. All right, there's already one there. So I save that. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up Google Sheets. You guys should see my Google Sheets there. And you won't be able to see this, but I'm going to open up that file. So let's go to, what was that? See, users will, and it was called internal HTML. So I'm going to open that up. It opens up in Excel. I'm going to copy all of it, and then I'm going to post it into Google Sheets. So I just did a select all and then a paste. Now I have it in my Google Sheet here. And you guys, can you guys see the Google Sheet? You guys can see that okay? Let me make sure you guys can see that. All right. Excellent. Excellent. All right. So couple of things just to dress this up real quick. I like to make line number one bold, just so I know what that is. And then I also do a view freeze the first row so that as I scroll, that line stays up there at the top. Okay, now what's going on here, right? Okay, couple things. So address is all of the links on your site. So here's the home page right there. Here is the shears and shadings page. Here's the roller shades page. Here's the cellular shades page, right? So got all these pages in here. If I scroll over here, I can see title 1. So Relish Interiors homepage title, let me blow that up a little bit, is Relish blinds, shades, and awnings. All right. So let's look at shears and shadings page. That title for that page is shears and shadings dash relish dash blind, shades, and awnings. So you can see the pattern here: roller shades, relish, cellular shades, relish, right? So there, now we have all the titles. I can scroll down and see all the titles in that particular column. I can cruise over a little bit more to the right, and I can see what I was mentioning earlier: title length in characters, title length in pixels. Now we get into some more exciting stuff. Description. So one thing I didn't really talk a lot about is that every page on the site also gets a description. So we definitely want to know what the description of every page is. And you can see those right inside here. Every page gets a description. And then if we keep going over here, here's our H1. So the H1 for this homepage is, we are your local window covering experts, in all caps. And it is 41 characters long. Now, if you had a second H1 tag, which you shouldn't, it would show up here. And good for you, Leah, it's empty. And it looks like oh, I saw one, right? So this page, what page is this? Top up, bottom down, top down, bottom up, right? Oh, it's a blog page. So your blog page, for some reason, has 2 H1 tags, right? So that's something definitely need to fix. Let's see here. So everything else looks great from that standpoint. So there's your H1s for that particular page. So if I look at your roller and screen shades page, there's the H1. So the way that I handle this is a couple things. And this is why I like Google Sheets. The way that I do this is I go to title. So here's my title. I do a right click on the next one over from title, right click, and then I insert a column to the left. So now I have this empty row here, or this empty column, and I'm going to call this new title. Then I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do the same thing. Oops, I can't see what I'm doing. Let's move it over a little bit. Right here, I'm going to go insert one to the left, and I'm going to go new description. And I'm going to go right here, insert one to the left, and I'm going to go new H1. Okay. Now, the other thing that I do sometimes, and you guys probably should do, is after you do the new title, I actually do another one called date published. So as I write these new things and add them to my site, what did I do? New description. Did I not do it? Insert one to the, oh, maybe I did it wrong. Date published. You can tell I can't talk and do this at the same time. All right. And then H1, new H1, one to the left, date published. Now what I can do is I can go through and look at my title and say relish blind shades and awnings. Well, that's okay, but in reality, let me back up. So homepage title and H1 needs to be your number one keyword. And most likely your number one keyword is window treatments location, right? That's probably your number one. Well, it is your number one keyword. I'm just telling you, as a marketing company that does this for a living, that's your number one keyword. So Leah, where are you located? Let's find that out. And then I'm going to move this out a little bit here just so I have room. Okay, Campbell River, where is that? Campbell River what? Okay, North Vancouver Island. Perfect. All right. So new title, window treatments, North, sorry, Camp, I got to make sure I spell it right. Campbell River, North Vancouver. Oh, geez. You guys will have a good laugh. Okay, that's perfect. It's probably on the limit of how long it can be, but we're okay. And quite honestly, we're probably okay if the word island doesn't get counted, right? There's enough meat there that Google will know what that is, right? That would be my number one keyword, and that would be my title tag. Now, the argument you might say, Leah, is what about my brand? I want people to know Relish. That's what I want them to know. If somebody knows your brand, they're going to go to the web and they're going to type in Relish Blinds or whatever the name of your company is, Relish Window Treatments. They're already familiar with your brand because they heard your name from somewhere. They're going to type that in. They're probably just looking for a phone number at that point, right? Or they're just going to go there. They're going to fill the form out and be done. So now I know I rank so well for Relish. Yes, exactly. If you have a shorter title like Window Treatments Memphis or something like that, then what I would do is I would put Window Treatments Memphis dash ABC Blinds, right? I would take the extra space and go ahead and put my brand name there. But with something that's this long, I probably would just not even worry about it because your brand is going to show up on the site anyway. Google's going to figure out who you are and they're going to rank you for that. Also, your business name is going to show up in the copy on your site. Your business name is going to show up on your Google business profile, right? There's plenty of other places for your business name to show up that you don't necessarily have to put it on your site, right? Squarespace added that's all my page titles automatically. This is so much better. Yeah. And that's something WordPress used to do too. So WordPress used to do this, like you see in these other ones. They would add that at the end of every single page. And it's just a total waste, right? So if you can turn that off, this is where Squarespace and Wix and some of these sites get a little weird. Sometimes you can't turn that off, right? But if you can control what happens before dash relish blind shades and awnings, then you just fill that up with words that you want to be there. And then all of those will just get pushed to the end and Google will ignore them, right? I mean, that's kind of a workaround that you could use. But okay, so we built our new page title. Then what I would do, I would go through and do some homework and write all these page titles for all these different pages. So in this case, window, shears, and shadings. And by the way, you see I use the ampersand just to save myself 2 characters in Campbell River. And then you could probably do, I don't know if you guys do something like this or, some sort of short code maybe to make it better, but something like that might be good. Then, of course, what you do is go back and, okay, now I'm going to start putting these on my website. Then you just put the date in there that you publish that, so that when you start going to some of your tracking tools, when we talk about those later on, you can go back and say, oh, wow, I published all of these things in the middle of March. Here it is, the 1st of May. And now all of a sudden I'm starting to see a bunch of rankings come in, right? Google's starting to index the changes that I made. So that way you can kind of go back and refer to what did I do that made this better. So, and then do the same thing, meta descriptions and H1s. So here's the same exact thing. We're your local window covering experts. I mean, that does nothing for where you're at, right? This again needs to be very similar to your title tag, if not the same as your title tag. Window treatments, Campbell River, something like that. All right. The other thing I do see here is sometimes people will put counties, or they'll use slang, like this is the tri-state area, right? A lot of people don't type that kind of stuff into Google. So even though you might live in the tri-state area, a lot of people don't type in plumber tri-state area. They type in plumber near me, window treatments near me, window treatments Memphis. They tend to use a specific location and not a slang for an area or a county. A lot of people will type in counties or they'll put in zip codes sometimes, that kind of stuff. I would avoid a lot of that. I think that's probably not the best idea to do that. So, all right, that is a cool little tangent there on Screamingfrog. There's the link to that. It's also in the workbook for you guys. So you can go through there, plug in your domain, and get some really cool data back from that, and give yourself some homework, quite honestly. So, all right. Next, let's talk about page copy or content. So every page on your website also needs to have content. It needs to have a good amount of text on your page. And I see this a lot too, where, especially in our industry, we want to put a lot of pictures up there, a lot of before and afters, a lot of the great pictures that Hunter Douglas gives us about how beautiful these homes look. And it makes sense, but Google doesn't see pictures. They just know that there's a picture. They don't know what the picture is. They don't know what it is. So the only thing they can judge a page by is the content or the text that's on that page. So if your homepage is something like this, that was a homepage that we came across, and it's not going to do any good. There's literally no text for Google to ever know what this page is about and therefore ever index it somewhere. So it's never going to get any love from Google on that. So it has to have text. Now, this slide says at least 650 words. And I think that's a decent target. In today's world, that number really is probably closer to 1,000, 1,200, 1,500. Now, that is pretty difficult to do, especially when you start to get into what can I say about window treatments without just starting to sound repetitive over and over, especially when you're doing like copy on your homepage, and then you have to write copy for your About Us page. How do I make those different, right? It's kind of difficult to start to differentiate yourself. When you get to the product page, it's a little bit easier. You can talk about the product. You can talk about what separates this product from other ones. How does this product interact with this? What are the benefits of this? What are the cons of this product? That kind of stuff. But every page needs to have X number of words. We're going to say that number is 650 for whatever, somewhere in that area. It needs to have text on a page. So if you go through your site and you start looking at all the different pages on your site, count the copy, and you can just do a select all, just do a Control A, select all, Control C, copy, whatever it comes up with, paste that into a Word doc, and then see how many words it says are there. It'll count your navigation and everything, but still, it'll give you a good idea of how many words are on that page. All right. So let's talk a little bit about web design. So I already kind of mentioned this earlier, that web design and having a really, really pretty site is great for us as business owners. It's great for our ego, right? Really makes us feel good when somebody visits our site, and that was a beautiful site. You show it to your friends, show it to your BNI group, all those kinds of things, right? It really feels good. But if that beautiful thing is not generating leads for you, then who cares, right? It's not doing what it needs to do. So it needs to generate leads. It needs to convert people to the obvious next step. That is the biggest piece, the biggest missing piece for web designers, and even some well-known web designers in our industry. They make these beautiful sites that don't convert very well. You have to have an obvious next step. This is Naka's Drapery on Maui. You know, they've got the chat widget in the bottom corner. They've got now hiring in the top right. There are some obvious next steps when it comes to sites like this. You have to have these conversion factors in place. So what are some of those conversion factors? One that we like to use is something called a lead magnet. And maybe you've heard of that, maybe you haven't, but a lead magnet is something that attracts somebody to do something on your site. A lot of times that is to pick up the phone and take advantage of an offer. It could be that they plug in their email address and trade the value of their email for the value of whatever you're offering to them. Could be something like that. Here's Made in the Shade. They do free installation and rebates for up to $100 per window, right? Contact us. So some sort of an offer that gets people's attention and gives them a next step. There's an obvious purple button on this page that sticks out above all the others that tells you what to do next. So definitely consider some sort of a lead magnet. We've also had clients in the past that have created design guides, right? So the design guide to beautiful window treatments in your living room. Maybe that's what it is, right? And then they would go through maybe 5 or 6 different products that you could use in your living room, turn that into a PDF, and then offer that on the website as a free download. All you do is plug in your email address and they email you that PDF. Now they've got your email address, which goes into their newsletter. Now you're on their newsletter list. So it's a trade, value for value, value meaning the customer values that email address and they want the value of that design guide PDF, right? So there's an exchange of value. So that's couple good examples of a lead magnet. Once you get some of those things in order, you definitely have to have tracking mechanisms in place. So we have to track some of these things. I got a question here. My site already has a lot of content from my old agency. Can I update old content with new keywords and information, or should I just create new content? So, in my opinion, so it depends. It depends on how robust the old content was. If the old content is 2 paragraphs and it's not ranking for anything, then it probably has no value now. So it doesn't matter if you just update it or start over. If if it was from an old agency, it probably does have some value, and you are much better off to just update that content. And I actually wrote a blog on that one time. We actually did the word's escaping me at the moment. We did an experiment on this. We had a blog that was, we had posted a blog and it got a lot of traffic, and then, traffic dies. It just does as blogs get older, it dies off. And it was about 2 years. We went in and we just updated the content. We did a big update. We probably tripled the amount of content that was there. So we did not rewrite what was there. We just updated everything, added a bunch more value to it. And within a week or two, it skyrocketed up, and it got 2 or 3 times the amount of traffic that it initially got when it was first published. So great question. Definitely worth going back to some of those blogs that maybe got traffic at some point. They're still relevant to something that you do. Go back and, 10x that content and really do it a really good job. That content will definitely rank quicker versus being brand new content, because it's already got the authority behind it. It's already got the history. Good question. Good question. All right, I'm gonna grab a drink. All right, tracking mechanisms. So we're going to talk more about tracking in an upcoming session, but it's definitely important that you have Google Analytics at a minimum on your site. Have Google Analytics on there so that you can start to see, okay, here's my published date, March 15th. And then, like I said, somewhere around May, all of a sudden my site started to gain some momentum and some rankings and things like that. So I can go back and say, okay, these are the things I did 6 or so weeks ago that probably influenced these increases in ranking. All right, so one thing you can do, pull up your website. There's a couple just other small things I want to go through real quick. Pull up your website, and also pull up your website on your phone. So on your phone, look at your website this way. You can see me. Then turn your phone this way. Make sure that your website adjusts to the different size screen. Things probably move around a little bit. For the most part, everybody's website nowadays are mobile friendly, and that's called responsive websites. They respond to the size of the screen and they adjust, and things show up normally. If you pull up your website, especially in this long view like this, and you notice that words are cut off, graphics are cut off on the edge and things like that, it could be that your site's not mobile friendly. And that's a big alert. So that's definitely an issue, meaning you need to get your website redone for sure. On the desktop, obviously make sure everything looks good. From a conversion standpoint, phone number top right, logo top left. Phone number should be click to call. So if you mouse over the phone number, it should turn into the little pointy finger where it's a link, right? On the phone, you should see the phone number at the top somewhere, and you should be able to click that phone number, and it should bring up your phone app because these things actually do make phone calls too nowadays. Uh, and make sure that you can do a click to call. So there are people that are just looking for business just to call them. So make sure that that works and that they don't have to copy and paste that phone number in order to get a hold of you. Built to convert, make sure that there's an obvious next step. And a really cool little exercise that I like to do, pull up your website, click on something, click on just one of the things in your menu, scroll halfway down, click on something else, scroll halfway down, and then just stop at some point, and then look at the screen. Wherever you stopped, is there an obvious next step wherever you stopped? Is there a different color button? Is there something that stands out that if you were a customer, you would say, oh, this is what I should be doing. I should be calling this number. I should be clicking this contact us button. Does the contact us button or the schedule an appointment button blend in? Is it the same color as all the other stuff? Or is it a crazy green or blue or orange or something that stands out? That's a fun little project. Do that 2 or 3 times. Click 2 or 3 pages, scroll around, end up in some random place, and then see, okay, as a customer, do I know what to do next? So what do you need to tweak? What kind of changes can you make here? Don't forget about the click to call. Check on your mobile device. Make sure there's a click to call. Make sure that number stays there at all times. All right, questions. Let me jump over to the chat. I've gone through a lot of stuff here. All of this is in your worksheet too, so you guys don't have to scribble all this stuff down. But there are some notes here related to some on-page stuff. But I want to make sure that Leah loses her rankings related to relish, hot dog relish, hamburger relish, all of those useless searches that she's ranking for, and that she starts to rank for the things that she needs to rank for and wants to rank for. I have somebody somewhere is calling me on Facebook or something. I'm sorry about that. I have no idea how to stop it. So you have to listen to it for a minute here, I think. All right, question. Leah says, challenge accepted. Awesome. By the way, no problem with ranking for relish, blinds, and shades, or whatever your brand is. That's fantastic. But the phrase, just the word relish has other meanings, right? So doesn't really help you in most cases. So Travis, this was very helpful. Thank you. No problem. No problem. All right. I don't see any other questions. So let's see. Made in the shade. Here we go. Schedule your complimentary consultation. They've also got a button at the top that says make an appointment. It's a different color. That's a great example there. Let's see here. All right. Next week, as I mentioned earlier, off-page factors. So things that we can do on other websites to influence Google to love our website. So that's going to be fun. You might think, well, how in the world am I going to do that? There are a lot of ways to do this. And quite honestly, when we get a new client, before we even publish a new website for them, which is a 30, 45, 60-day build out, one of the first things that we do is we start working on off-page things that we can do for our client to get them to start sending those signals to Google that we want this website to rank. And by time we launch this brand new website for them, Google's already warmed up to the fact that this business means business, right? That there's some SEO stuff going on. So that'll be a lot of fun. Off-page factors is really cool. So, all right. Any other questions? I want to make sure I get everything answered for you guys. Sorry if I'm a little jacked up. This has been fun. I'm also drinking my Monster here, so that doesn't help either. But want to make sure that you guys have everything that you need to get this week going. By the way, I'm going to share a QR code here in a minute for this week's worksheet. And it does have some homework at the end. And it also has links to a couple things we talked about. So I want to make sure you guys get that. I don't see any other questions. If you have any, put those into the chat. As I mentioned in the past, this is part of our digital dominance method. Today, we talked about number 1 and number 4, website and organic SEO. Next week, we're gonna still be on organic SEO. We're just gonna be talking about the other side of it. So next week, session 3, off-page SEO. You do not have to register for that. If you already have registered for this class, then you're already registered for the next one. Session 4, we're going to be talking about things that might be hurting you that maybe you were doing in the past or didn't realize you were doing, and that could be hurting you. So we're going to dispel some myths, things like that. Session 5, we're going to talk about all the tracking stuff you need to have in place to make sure that all this work you're doing is worthwhile and it's showing some sort of fruit. And then week 6 is wrap up Q&A. I'm going to be live in Dallas at the IWCE for that one. So that'll be fun. So, all right, let's see. Any other questions? Let me see. Questions. Okay, here's a couple. All right, we got that. How do I make it without sounding? In practice, how many H1 tags should a page have? And how does this affect SEO? So 1 H1 per page. And typically it matches your title tag pretty close or really close or exactly. Usually they're very, very similar to each other. Can the style and size of fonts impact SEO, and how should we approach this for best user experience? So in the past, that was a no, but nowadays it's a yes. So Google does pay attention to usability of sites. They definitely pay attention to those types of things, the readability of a site, and make sure that your text is easy to read and that it's easy to read across multiple devices in multiple layouts. So font size is important. It has to be adjustable. There's something called CSS, or cascading style sheets, which is nerdy stuff that you don't necessarily have to know about, but it adjusts font styling for different sizes of screens, things like that, to make sure that all of that is readable, because there are situations where Google won't show a page simply because they don't think it's readable. Now, in week number 5, when we talk about tracking your work, there is there's a tool called Google Search Console, which used to be called Google Webmaster Tools. And they actually would email you if you have that set up and say, hey, this page is not readable, or not readable on certain devices, things like that. So that's definitely something that you need to know as well. So, all right, I think that is all the questions. I don't see anything else here. Are heading tags just there for SEO, or do they have another purpose? Well, heading tags are there to separate the page. So heading tags, we talked only about H1 tags really today, right? H1 is the heading tag, the top heading, what that page is about. Now, you can have multiple H2 tags on a page. So again, if we go back to the newspaper example, H1 is the big headline of the day, right? It's the big news article of the day, but there's probably 3 or 4 less important news articles, but they're all equally important, maybe. Those could all be H2s, right? So you could have your H1 on your Roman Shades page is going to be Roman Shades for your home in Memphis, right? Or Memphis, Tennessee. That would be your H1 tag. You might have an H2 tag that says benefits of Roman Shades. Paragraph. You might have an H2 tag that says cons of having Roman Shades, and maybe a paragraph or 2. And then you might have another H2 tag that says, maybe it's a question. What is the difference between a Roman shade and X, right? So you might have multiple heading H2 tags on a page, maybe some H3 tags, but for the most part, we use H1s, H2s, maybe H3s on pages. So you can have multiples of H2s and below, but not multiple H1 tags. All right. That was from YouTube. So, okay, very good. Well, thank you guys for jumping on. Here is the QR codes for a couple things. So the Facebook group is where we are posting all of the questions and answers. If you have any questions about anything, and you don't want to wait till next week, post those in there. And of course, join the group. Oh, what happened? Sometimes it does that. Join the group, make sure that you're in there. And then the SEO Masterclass resources, that is the resources, that is going to be a Google Drive folder that is updated every week with all of the resources, the homework, the worksheets, everything is in there. All of the links that we talk about, things like that, is in there as well. So we will see you next week for session 3 on off-page SEO. Excited to have you guys on. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today, and have a fantastic rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.